What's the best simple test of leadership? How often does somebody leave an interaction with you feeling better or worse about themselves? What a simple test. And if it's good news, you feel good. But what if Roger made a mistake? Can you still, as a leader, make sure that he leaves feeling better about himself? To me, that's the essence of leadership. Leadership is not what you do. It's how what you do helps others find meaning and purpose and security in the things they do.
Welcome to Leadership, the podcast where leadership meets real-world insights. In each episode, you can eavesdrop on exclusive conversations with top thought leaders, best-selling authors, and experts in leadership, communication, relationships, culture, and everything else that shapes your effectiveness in the workplace and in your personal life. Leadership is here for you. Now, here's our host, himself a seasoned coach and best-selling author, Dr. Roger Dean Duncan.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to Leadership. Let's begin with a quick test. What is the leading cause of death today? Here are your choices: high blood pressure, high cholesterol, inactivity, social isolation, fast foods, alcohol, obesity, depression. The answer is social isolation. This may surprise you, but in this high-tech age when it's so easy to peek into the lives of complete strangers, more and more people are feeling isolated. The phenomenon has far-reaching implications for all of us. So to get an expert opinion on the issue, I've invited Dr. Dave Ulrich to join us on this episode of Leadership. Who's Dave Ulrich? BusinessWeek ranked him as the #1 management educator and guru. Fast Company selected him as one of the world's top innovative and creative leaders. He's been honored by the Thinkers 50 Hall of Fame, and HR Magazine named him the most influential HR thinker of the decade. He's also written many of the most prominent books in the field of human resources, including The Why of Work, which he co-authored with his wife, Wendy, a prominent psychologist. In other words, Dr. Dave Ulrich has earned the right to be listened to. Dave, welcome to Leadership.
Roger, I'm so privileged to be here, and I feel less socially isolated just talking with you.
Well, that's great. Now, in your work with individuals and organizations, what do you see as the impact of social isolation?
You know, the purpose of work is not what we do. It's how what we do helps others do their job better. So when I talk to leaders, I say, what are you doing? They say, I'm doing this, this, and this. And I say, so who's benefiting? Who's benefiting? And if your work doesn't benefit someone else, then you become isolated and it becomes self-centered and narcissistic. And so social isolation is really dangerous because you focus only on yourself, not on the value you create for somebody else. Leadership is not what I do. It's how what I do helps others do what they do better.
Well, in human resource circles, engagement, as you well know, has been a popular subject for years. Where does belonging fit in a discussion of connecting people to an organization or a cause?
You know, the human resource movement began a long time ago, and there's been a whole series. I love to think as waves that grow on each other. Are your employees motivated? Are they satisfied? Are they committed? Are they engaged? Each one growing. Do they have a good experience? The theme that we're seeing emerge on top of that, they're all true: satisfaction, motivation, engagement, experience. The word that we're seeing pick up lately is hope. Hope. How do I find hope in the future? Well, what gives me hope? A big part of hope, and we studied this in Why of Work, and we've studied it since, is hope is the sense of connected to a community. Belonging is there's a community. There's a group of people I can call on. One of the great tests of relationships and hope, how many people could you call at 2 a.m. who would respond to you? So you're in some crisis. Most people in the U.S., the social isolation, don't have anyone. What they find is that if you have 2 or 3 people that you could call on, let's say a daughter who lives down the street, and you could call on those people at 2 a.m. and they'd respond. That's part of hope. It's not the only element of hope, but that gives me a sense of hope because I'm now belonging to part of a community who cares for me, not because of my job or my title, but they care for me as a person.
So in an organization, what do you see as the steps to creating a sense of belonging in people?
The first step, Roger, is to say, I look at people and I know them and I care about them. I know their name, I know their background, I know where they come from, I know their story, I know their history. And one of the ways to do that is to avoid the isolation. When I'm on a call with Zoom or Teams and I get to talk to people in their office, I love them to tell me a story about their office. I hear stories about building a house and building an office over the garage. I hear a story about I enjoy fishing. I hear a story about my father's picture, my mother's picture is on the wall. And those stories give me a sense of who they are, and we stay connected. I know them, I know their story. I'm part of a community. I'm involved in a community in our neighborhood. It happens to be a church community. And the coolest thing somebody said to me once was, Dave, you got a haircut. And I thought, that seems really silly, but he knows me and he knows I got a haircut. And so now he and I have an ongoing joke. Oh, your hair looks good today. I'm in a community. He noticed my haircut. What a cool thing. What a cool thing.
Well, happy haircut.
Yeah. Well, I don't now. I'm glad we're not on video because my hair is a little unruly today. But do I know you? Do I care about you? Am I trying to help you reach your goals? Am I trying to do things that will help you be successful in your life rather than imposing mine on you?
Shouldn't individuals take personal responsibility for finding meaning in their work?
No question. Meaning comes when I'm an agent. And as an agent, I take responsibility for my own meaning. Do I have the courage? Do I have the activity? Organizations have a stewardship to give people opportunity and space. Individuals then have to use it. I'm doing some work at a university. It's an open enrollment university. Anybody can attend. And they say, we're absolutely open. Everybody can attend, but you then have to be serious. We'll be inclusive. You don't have to go through tests to get in, but you have to be serious. We'll put you in a class you can accomplish, but you have to take the class. You have to do your homework. You need to be an agent to accept your responsibility to make that belonging and connection happen.
Well, that makes a lot of sense. So in the context of meaning, how do you define abundance? I've seen that you've written about abundance in meaning. Tell us about that.
The term abundance has a lot of terms. It comes out of the New Testament for those who follow the Bible. I give you a more abundant life. Abundant is where people look at an experience and they see what's right, not what's wrong. They grow, they progress, they expand, they get better. And the abundance means that I'm getting better. And we did a book on that called Why of Work, and we identified 7 dimensions of abundance. Since that book, we continue to simplify and focus. We've said, I have a sense of abundance or fulfillment around 4 things. One is be safe, psychological safety, physical safety. 2 is become better, learn and grow. 3 is belong, be part of a community. And 4, belief, share meaning. Those 4 B's, be safe, belong, become, and believe, are really the elements that we think give you abundance in your personal life, and they can be embedded in an organization.
Now, I've heard you say that leaders are meaning makers. In terms of observable behaviors, what does that look like?
It's really interesting. Some research has just shown the extent to which a leader feels connected and meaning and abundance in his or her life will transfer to the employees. Very interesting. A leader who is feeling that believe, become, belong, be safe is going to share that with employees. A meaning maker leader is one who gives an employee meaning, believe, who gives them belonging, a sense of inclusion, a sense of connection, who gives them a sense of growth, of becoming better, and who gives them be safe, physical and psychological safety. Those are the things leaders can do with their employees so that your employees feel better about themselves. I've done a lot of research, written books on leadership. I love simplicity. What's the best simple test of leadership? How often does somebody leave an interaction with you feeling better or worse about themselves? What a simple test.
Right.
What a simple test. And if it's good news, oh, Roger, you made the goal. You did so much. You were successful. Your family is a success. Congratulations. Here's $1 million bonus. You feel good. But what if Roger made a mistake? Can you still, as a leader, make sure that he leaves feeling better about himself? To me, that's the essence of leadership. Leadership is not what you do. It's how what you do helps others find meaning and purpose and security in the things they do.
Yes, I've seen leaders who, when somebody on their team makes a mistake, costly or otherwise, rather than attack them, they sit down with them and say, okay, what can we learn from this?
Quick example, I'm coaching a very senior business leader, global company, and he's very senior, and it's somebody on his team made an egregious mistake that was going to cost millions of dollars. And he wrote an email. You made a horrible mistake that cost us millions of dollars. If you don't fix it, you're fired.
Wow.
Well, Roger, you've done coaching, and I made an agreement with this guy. Before you hit send me a note. He sent me a note. I got on. I said, don't hit send. Add 3 sentences. Number 1, I care about you. Number 2, you have great future potential at this company. Then you do say you made a big mistake that's going to cost us millions of dollars. You can't hide from the mistake. But sentence 3, and you just said it beautifully. What can we learn that will go forward better?
Right.
And he put him in, he sent it. He called me back the next day, said, I don't believe it. I got a good response.
Right.
Yeah. Instead of bullying and punishing, I enabled. And you did make a mistake, and it's going to cost us money. We're not going to hide from that. You can't. Leaders have to hold people accountable. But we can do it in a way that shows our power is to empower you and to make you feel better. And it's not complicated. I care about you. You have great potential. What do we learn? What a great way to begin to frame accountability.
Sure, and we can be sure that other people in that organization were aware of how that situation was handled.
Actually, at the time, they were a little shocked because this leader had not very often done that. That's why I was coaching him. And that got distributed. And they said, really? Maybe he's trying, or she, I don't want to get into detail,
Right.
is trying something new. And boy, does that help. My job as a leader is to make sure you leave feeling better with accountability. We're not walking away. You made a mistake. That's okay.
Right. Well, now, as the story goes, people feel differently about the meaning of their work if they see themselves as bricklayers rather than as building a cathedral to God. What can leaders and individuals do to make work more about cathedral building?
It's an old story most have seen. Somebody's laying bricks, they're building a wall, they're building a cathedral. I'm going to go back to those 4 B's. Believe. Find a bigger purpose. I'm not building a wall, I'm building a cathedral to God. Become. What are you learning about cathedrals? What can you teach me? How do we learn together? Be safe, obviously, physical, psychological safety, and then belong. How do you begin to join others who share your purpose of building that great cathedral? I like those 4 B's. They're pretty simple. Believe, become, belong, and be safe, because they form a foundation of what we know. And again, I said earlier about where does that hope come from? It comes from those actions that leaders model by their behavior.
Exactly. So what advice do you give workers who don't have a charismatic leader who pushes an abundance agenda? What can they do to flourish?
It's an interesting challenge. Number 1, I think when we go to our leader, the simple advice, the best advice, if they can't change, maybe you have to leave. And that may happen. I've encouraged some people to say, if this doesn't, but don't leave before you have somewhere to go. So very honest transfer, don't just run away. But I think they go to their leader and they find out what's motivating him or her. Why are they behaving this way? Are they afraid as a leader? Are they unclear about their stewardship? Are they worried about outcomes? Because if we as an employee can help our leader identify and reach their goals, we're going to be more effective. We try sometimes to impose our goals. I want you to listen to me on their behavior, so you need to listen more. Well, their goal is to make sure that we reach our financial obligations. Good. I think if you listen more, you'll be more able to reach your goals. To me, that's a beautiful thought. Leadership and employees start not by imposing their goals, but by saying, I'm here to help you reach your goals and to help you get those goals to happen. And listening will help you make your goals happen. I can tell a quick story about that. When we had teenagers, and I'm sure anybody with teenagers may find this, one of our daughters had a messy room. And so we kept imposing our goals. Clean your room, clean your room, clean your room. And she kept saying, it's my room, stay out. And we ended up into this little vicious circle. And finally, it hit us. We've got to find her goals. What are her goals? Well, she was dating a young man named Wes. And so we said to our daughter, I won't say her name, but if she listens to this.
It was just the one dating Wes. Okay, we won't say her name.
We won't. And they haven't furthered that. But we said, on Friday, we've decided to invite Wes's parents over to visit. They're going to start the visit in the house by going to your room. Well, suddenly we found something she cared about. Wes's parents wanted a good opinion about her. And so So she cleaned her room, not for us, but for Wes's parents. So, I mean, it's a stupid little logic, but you don't start with our goal is to have a clean house. Well, that's not her goal. Her goal is to have a good relationship with a friend and his parents. Well, good. Cleaning your room is going to help you get there. That logic for me is so critical that when we try as employees to help our managers change their behavior, do it because it helps them with their goal, not our goal.
Right. Now, Gallup research shows that employees who have a best friend at work are 7 times more likely to be highly engaged in the workplace than those who don't. What can be done to create a workplace that fosters those kinds of relationships?
It's really fun. I'll just say 4 or 5 things. You can see it. When we have a team meeting, start with a good news moment. What's good? What's happened? What's been a good news? What's good that's happened in the last day or two? And it doesn't have to be work related. Spend time socially together. Hang out together. I don't think we have to have best friends all the time, but we need to be able to share each other. Let people know I'd be available at that 2 a.m. call. Just to be personal, I'm coaching somebody. I woke up at 2 a.m. I often wake up at 2 a.m. to do some thinking. And into my mind popped an idea, send this individual a text. I sent this individual a text that I'm going to get emotional. I sent this individual a text today at 2 a.m. and at 2:25, the person texted back and said, thank you. I think somebody cares about me.
Wow.
What a sweet experience.
Yeah, priceless.
It's priceless. And that's what a leader can begin to do. Sometimes in the technology world where we're isolated, we're on Zoom, we're on Teams. One of the leaders I know, she was so good. She would call she'd get on Zoom or Teams, every one of her employees once a week or once every other week and spend 10 minutes. Tell me something going on in your life, not related to work. Gallup says, have a best friend at work. I love the ancillary. Have a best friend who could care less about your work.
Yes.
And let your leader care about your life.
Right.
What's going on with your son, your daughter? Quick anecdote of why this is so critical. I happen to do a plant tour. You've done many tours and you've seen plants. And it's amazing when you do a plant tour. Everybody's got a collared shirt on. They have a flip chart with their quality stuff.
Right.
And we did an hour-and-a-half plant tour and sat down. And the person I was with, I'm so embarrassed I didn't get it, Roger. He looked at the plant manager and the president of the company who was on the tour with us and said, you have a major problem. And they're going, what do you mean? I mean, it was clean. It was spotless. It was scripted. And they said, in the last hour and a half, not once did one of your team go offline and connect with an employee. Joe, how's coaching the soccer team? Judy, how's it going with your mom who's getting older? Not once did I see some of that personal connection that didn't come from the structure. And he said, I think you got a problem. You got to get your leaders and your employees. What's going on with soccer? How did your Sunday church lesson go? How's your aging parent? How's your health? I know your spouse has been sick. I mean, he said, not once did I see that. And I thought, I just missed it. We need that informal connection that is part of belonging. It brings us in, it brings humanity into the company. I mean, that's an example of just, we care.
Human to human. It's always human to human.
Oh, you said it beautifully.
I've told the story of working with Gordon McGovern many years ago, who was CEO at Campbell Soup Company, and he was gifted in the way he interacted with people several rungs down the ladder from him in terms of title and position. But he knew them by first name, and they knew him by first name. And I asked him one time, because I really admired the way he interacted with people, I said, what's the secret to how you're doing this, Gordon? He said, a long time ago, I learned how to listen with my mouth closed.
I'm not sure I dare respond to that. I'm opening my mouth. Yeah. Let me, I mean, you know this story. You've been in political processes and it's old, but it's so relevant. We have a lot of political discord today, and we see the toxicity that's horrible.
Yes.
And you probably know this story, and I hope I've got it right. If not, clarify. When Ronald Reagan was shot, he's in the hospital.
Right.
And you know this story.
Right.
In walks Tip O'Neill, his political nemesis. And again, I'm going to get emotional. He says, Mr. President, may I pray for you or with you?
Yeah.
What a sweet, and tomorrow when in a month when Reagan's healthy, we're going to go back to political debate. We're going to gain value from dialogue. But at this point, human to human, may I pray with or for you? And from what I gather, and again, the story I've read from Nancy Reagan was the only one in the room, and she said that was a very meaningful moment.
Sure.
These two stalwart political icons stop human to human. I think we miss that. I think we miss it in politics. I think we miss it in organizations. I just posted some stuff called Become a Peacemaker. Find ways to build peace with those you may not agree with. Disagree better, one of the governor's conference. Amazon, disagree, then commit. Find ways to disagree and then move forward together, even though we may not agree on everything.
Right. Well, I've said that if you have 10 or 12 smart people around the table, if they agree on everything, you have the wrong 10 or 12 people around the table. It's okay to disagree. Just don't be disagreeable about it.
Well said. One executive said to me, he said, Dave, if you and I don't disagree, one of us won't be necessary.
Yeah.
And then he said, and it won't be me. Then he said, which was brilliant, but when we go public, we're going to go with one voice.
Yes.
You disagree with me, come on in, let's talk. But when we go public, I don't want to have the backbiting, the sniping. We go with a voice. And I just find that, Roger, so valuable. Disagree better. And then go public. We voice our disagreement, and that's okay. But peacemaking says we don't always agree, but we're going to go forward. We're going to find the common ground that we can by listening, by understanding, by having two ears and one mouth, whatever that line is that you just sort of alluded to.
Hey there, Leadership listeners. We have something special for you. As a thank you for tuning in, we're offering you a free copy of Roger Dean Duncan's award-winning best-selling book, Change-Friendly Leadership. In this book, you'll discover a proven framework for leading change that people will actually buy into, without all the stress and resistance that often stand in the way. You'll also learn powerful strategies to improve relationships both at work and at home, creating a healthier, more productive environment for everyone. To claim your free copy, just head over to changefriendly.com. Don't miss out on this opportunity to transform your good intentions into great performance. Again, grab your free copy of this best-selling book at changefriendly.com.
Conflict, even if rare, is inevitable in most any work setting. So what have you seen as best practices in addressing conflict so the why of the work is appropriately reinforced?
First step is calm down. Conflict is often not about a person. The solve the problem, not fix the person. Calm down, take a deep breath. And this is not just organizations. I bet many families have had this. Organizations have it, political systems have it. Calm down. Listen, I love the 3 words, help me understand. Help me understand your point of view. Help me understand where you're coming from. If I understand the why, the what and the how gets easier. That's not my line, but it's a very good line. So why did you behave that way in this situation? What's behind that? Are you afraid? Are you worried? Are you nervous? Good. I appreciate that. What's your why? And now let's figure out where we can go to. And then what is it we share? And then we agree to disagree. A famous person in our field did an article in the HR field, and it got a lot of press, and it was somewhat cutting. People saw it as cutting and negative on our field. And I'm not going to say the person. It took me about 10 days to catch up with them. And people said, Dave, what do you think? What do you think? Because you've written about this stuff. And I ignored all those questions until I got him on the phone one night. And I got him on the phone one night and I said to my friend, I saw your post. I saw your article. Let me tell you how I think before I go public. And he said, what would you go public with? And I told him, and he said, Dave, in the last 10 days, you're the first person to call me before you went public.
Oh.
Let me say that again. You're the first person to call me before you went public. And he said, go public. We're going to disagree a little bit. That's okay. That's good. In fact, the absence of disagreement is the absence of creativity. We don't want to agree on everything. One of us isn't necessary. And he said, but you're the first one to call me first. By the way, that forged with him and I a lifetime relationship, because he said, I can now trust you. If you disagree with me, you're not going to go behind my back. You're not going to go on Fox News and spite me. You're not going to go on MSNBC or CNN. I got to get them all in there. You're going to call me and we're going to have a talk. And then we're going to agree to disagree. Disagree better. That's okay. Don't you wish, Roger, we could do more of that, both in organizations and society as a whole?
Well, yes, today we live in a world of gladiators with microphones. So,
Great line. I can
so
see why you were a speechwriter.
Now, you say that employees stay with an organization not just for pay or perks, but for a sense of purpose. We've talked about that. How can HR professionals translate meaning into concrete elements of a value proposition that still resonate with the chief financial officer?
A lot of people say HR's job is to do, believe, become, belong, be safe. These 4 things I talk about. The ultimate job we have in HR is to give an employee a job. Let me say that again. A lot of times in HR and leadership, we look at what we do, not how what we do creates value. That's where we started for a customer, for an investor. Because I gave a talk, and I'll give an example of this. It was to a large company, 100 PhDs, 70 PhDs in physics and science. I don't know, Roger, if you've ever been intimidated. I was intimidated because they have PhDs in math and all this stuff. I thought, how do I get their attention? My undergraduate degree is in English. And I said, what do these companies have in common? I started listing some old ones: Digital, Compaq, Toys R Us, Sears, etc., Eastman Kodak. And somebody yelled out, they all went broke. And I yelled back, I consulted for every one of them. And there was half a moment of dead silence. And then they said, so why are you here? And I said, let me tell you what I learned. The best thing you can give an employee is a company that succeeds in the marketplace. If your company doesn't succeed in the marketplace, Toys R Us lost 300,000 jobs. Wow. You can do believe, become, belong. But if you don't translate that to success with a customer, with an investor in the marketplace, you have failed the employee. And so our job as business and HR leaders is to make sure that we create organizations inside so that value outside is created in the community where we live, a reputation. And I was going to name companies. I don't want to do that because there would be so many that feel unlit. But you want to build a reputation. You want to get customers to buy your product. You want investors to invest in you.
Sure.
If you can't do that by what we do inside, we have failed our marketplace and our employees.
Now, Dave, in your framework, who am I and who are we are foundational questions. What practical exercises can help teams surface and refine those shared identity stories?
Personal level. I love to ask leaders I coach, what do you want to be known for? What do you want to be known for? What's your brand? What's your identity? Not what do you do? Well, I'm setting a vision. No, what do you want to be known for? It'd be interesting, Roger, to ask you that. I won't do coaching on the podcast. That would be inappropriate. We didn't agree to that. But I want to be known. I'll just do mine. In fact, I love it. In a world of uncertainty, we often do scenarios to chase the uncertainty. I would come back and say, what are you certain about? What do you want to be known for? For me, I want to be known as somebody who learns. I don't want to get locked into my past. And I want to be known as somebody who learns so that others get value from my learning. That's mine. Okay.
Right.
I'm certain about that. Am I going to do a podcast? Am I going to do a talk? Am I going to do a webinar? It doesn't matter. Personal level. What do I want? What do you as an individual want to be known for? What's your identity? At an organization, we can do the same thing. Simple exercise. We can call them all kinds of things: mission, vision, strategy, goals. Write down in 15 words what our team is trying to accomplish. Everybody writes it down. I'm old. I sometimes use flip charts. We post them around the room and say, you know what? We're only overlapping 50%. We got to get a common answer to that question. Whatever you want to call it: vision, mission, goals, aspiration. But we need a common answer. What are we trying to accomplish here? And I've done that exercise so many times. What is it we want to be known for? And then we try to get 70, 80%, 90% unity.
Beyond standard engagement scores, what leading indicators have you seen organizations successfully use to quantify meaning, and how do they act on that data?
One of the things I love, somebody did a study and they looked at talented employees who might be at risk of leaving because a talented employee probably has other job offers. When did they update their LinkedIn webpage? When you go in and update it, that's a signal. It's a simple signal. I think leaders need to be in touch with employees and to create an openness. I was in a company and they said, if you have a job offer outside the company, come talk to me. If you have an invitation, come talk to me. One leader went in and the person went in and said, I've got an offer outside the company. It's a 50% salary increase. And the leader looked at the employee and said, can I come with you? I mean, I'm not going to tell you to forego, but now let's be fair. Go with my blessing, but they're not going to pay you a 50% premium unless there's a risk involved. In this case, it happened to be in a consulting firm. You've done consulting, Roger. You don't consult out of your office over the garage. You consult by being on a plane.
Right.
And this job, there's an old movie called Up in the Air. You're on the plane, 190, 200 days a year. About 6 months later, that employee called the leader back and said, can I come back?
Mm-hmm.
And they left on good terms. By the way, when you come back, you can't come back at a 50% salary increase.
Right.
Because that's going to signal the only way you get an increase. But yeah, we'll have you back, but you're going to have, and you've learned from that. We can navigate that appropriate rewards, but find out and be open enough that people can say, yeah, you're going to go with my blessing, of course, but be careful. There's risk. We want to maintain that relationship. One of the things we find in engagement is when people leave and come back, they almost always stay forever. And those around them see that experience and learn from it.
Well, they see the things that they can appreciate that they might not have noticed before.
Absolutely.
And they can compare it with what they noticed outside that organization.
Well said.
So building a purpose-driven culture can sometimes feel slow, as you know. What realistic time horizon should leaders expect before they see measurable shifts in commitment and performance?
We can do some quick and some slow. I mean, every industry has a mindset of time. I've worked in forest products. We grow trees. It takes a long time to grow trees. Some of the products I worked with in the high-tech industry, and somebody said 50% of our revenue next year will come from products we haven't introduced yet. My line on culture change or building that engagement or culture is usually 1 to 2 times your industry cycle for time. So changing a culture at a high-tech firm will be quicker than changing a culture at a forest products firm. And so it's not just one answer. It depends on the mindset of the industry. If I'm in one of those high-tech firms, we're going to have 50% new products next year. They could build a culture quicker than a forest products firm who says we're going to take years to rebuild our forest products. 1 to 2 times the cycle time of your industry.
And being explicit is always important. I've often said we need to talk about here's what we stand for and here's what we don't stand for.
I love it.
Now, at Exxon, they were very clear on talking about here's what we stand for. The big mistake they made at first was they failed to talk about here's what we won't stand for.
Right.
And they got in big problems because of that. We could say that in our personal relationships too.
Oh, no question. Having clarity becomes such a critical thing. So, I mean, we have great principles and we teach people correct principles, but we got to turn them into concrete practices.
Right.
What does that mean in person? One of the exercises we love is you try to identify, we want to be innovative. We want to be creative. We want to be collaborative. What will you see more of and less of next week?
Yes.
And that very concrete behavior, then that's what we want to hold people accountable for. Not, what does innovation mean? And the only thing I'd add is make sure that we include the customer. I'll give one quick example. We want to be a better service company. Well, a lot of people say that. What does service mean to the customer? What does service mean to a customer? You've traveled a lot. I travel a lot. I'm doing a flight international. I'm in 12 hours on the plane. I show up at 2 or 3 in the morning in a nice hotel in another country. For the bellman, service means they take my bag out of the car and go into the hotel with me and take it to my room. You know what? That's not what service means for me. It's 2 a.m. I've got 6 hours of sleep ahead. I don't have any local currency. So I've actually almost gotten in fights with the bellman who opens the trunk, grabs my suitcase and says, I'm giving you good service by taking your suitcase. And I grab it back. And I say, no, for me, service is I've carried this suitcase 10,000 miles. I can carry it 200 feet to my room. Leave me alone.
Right.
And service is defined by the user, values defined by the receiver more than the giver. When I give my wife a gift, who defines the value of the gift? She does. When I was first married, I got her tickets to sporting events. And her comment was, enjoy yourself. Uh, Service is defined in the eyes of the receiver. And I think the more that we get that in our headsets, the more likely we will to create the right organization.
Well, we need to be alert in all relationships. That reminds me of my wife and I have been married 58 years, but when we were married about 35 years, we were on a trip. It was the middle of the summer and it was hot and muggy, and we stopped to get some gas for the car, and I went inside the station and brought out a couple of Snickers bars. And I handed one to my wife with a bottle of water, and she said, "Thank you so much for the water. What's this for?" And I said, "Well, I bought you a candy bar." And she said, "Honey, this is after 35 years of marriage. I don't like peanuts. Snickers is full of peanuts. I like Milky Way bars." Now, in the big scheme of things, that's not that important, but it really taught me a lesson. I needed to be more alert to how she would define a gift.
Boy, you've hit, for me, Roger, a principle that's driven my ideas for 50 years. We've had 50 years of marriage. We're not where you are. Values defined by the receiver. It's defined by the receiver.
Right.
When we were married with kids, we had 3 young kids. My wife was doing her PhD. She was crazy. I was doing my early career. What would you like? And she said, "I just like some time off."
Right.
And so what I did for 3 or 4 years, from Christmas to New Year's, I took the 3 kids away.
Mm-hmm.
And she said, "That's the best gift you've ever given." Then I thought about it. I thought, the best gift I give you is going away and leaving you alone. And she said, "Yeah, that's a great gift." Now, by the way, if you're listening to this as a leader, as a trainer, as an HR professional, value is not what you do. It's what others get because of what you do. And the more that simple principle gets inculcated into our world, that's believe, become, belong, be safe. It's all of those things that help others get what matters most to them.
It reminds me of many years ago, I was working with an organization down in Arizona, a manufacturing firm, and many of their workers were from Mexico. They were legal, but they were from Mexico, and they had a very good quarter, and the CEO decided he wanted to reward the workers. So he was having people find out, okay, how can we get T-shirts with the company name on it, coffee mugs and all this? And somebody said, "Why don't we ask the workers what they would appreciate?" Somebody did. And what they wanted was a Catholic priest to come in and hold Mass for them. Now, who would have thought of that? They took the trouble to ask. You just never know. And my friend said, frankly, that was a lot less expensive than buying a bunch of T-shirts. So,
my first response is, duh.
Yeah.
I mean, we try to impose. There was a factory in Ireland. They had to do a cutback because the industry was down. They were going to lay everybody off 10%, cutback. They went to the employees and said, "The industry's down 10%. We've got to manage costs. We're not hiding. We're not trying to scare you. What would you recommend?" They came up with some brilliant ideas. Everybody take a 9-day fortnight. We'll all work 10 days, not get paid for the 10th. Nobody's fired. Executives, maybe you could take a bigger pay cut than us because you have a little more. Suddenly they created a community. They got involved. They participated, and they withstood the recession. Everybody kept their job. It was an amazing kind of duh.
Right.
Are we listening? Great
Right.
example. Your example is so good.
Well, what question, Dave, do you wish I had asked but I didn't? And how would you respond?
I'm intrigued with my 2 points. They're my values. They're not necessarily others. What can we do to keep learning? How do we continue to be inquisitive? Put yourself in a position where you're not. I told some senior executives in a company once, "When's the last time you went to Walmart?" "I don't shop at Walmart." "Well, your customers do."
Right.
Go. And it's not because you're buying stuff. It's just observe what's going on. And then commit that what you learn will help somebody else be better. Those are the things that I'm passionate about. Am I learning by going to new places and seeing new things? And is my learning in this pursuit so that somebody else gets better? That's what I'm committed to. And I've written a number of books. Lately, I've decided books take a long time to write and they take a long time to get read. And they don't sell very much unless you have a TV show that sells them. So I'm posting on LinkedIn every Tuesday. I've done it for a couple of years. I get more response and engagement. I love the dialogue. I love to learn from what's there. So I hope those who want to see any of that will follow that. Roger, what would you say about belonging? You've got great 40-some years experience, 58 years of marriage, writing columns, speechwriter. What would be your headline? You're a newspaper journalist. What would be your headline about the importance of belonging and what we should pay attention to?
I guess I would go back to what we've talked about several times, and that's be a good listener. Just listen to learn, not to rebut, not to jump in with your comment that you're sitting there anxious, ready to have a moment of silence so you can jump in, but listen. Listen deeply, listen carefully. Listen not only to what is being said, but learn to listen for what's not being said and make it safe for the other person to feel safe so that they can tell you what's on their mind and what's on their heart. It's amazing how much you can learn if you, like Gordon McGovern said, learn to listen with your mouth shut.
In the spirit of listening, I'm going to respond, amen.
Yeah, amen. Well, Dave Ulrich, thank you so much. It's clear why you've received such accolades in the fields of leadership and organizational behavior. We appreciate your contribution to this episode of Leadership. For those of you who would like to learn more about Dave and his work, go to rbl.net. That's rbl.net. RBL, by the way, stands for Results-Based Leadership. And to grab a free copy of my book, Change Friendly Leadership, go to changefriendly.com. That's changefriendly.com. In other episodes of Leadership, I share my exclusive conversations with top thought leaders who offer smart tips to boost your effectiveness in both your professional and personal life. My guests include superstars like Stephen M.R. Covey, Liz Wiseman, Doug Conant, Dory Clark, Heather Younger, Marshall Goldsmith, Amy Edmondson, Bill George, Jessica Chen, Guy Kawasaki, Dana Perino, and many others who have insightful things to say that you can put to good use immediately. Be sure to subscribe to our podcast so you can stay informed on what's coming your way. Trust me, folks, you don't want to miss any of our episodes. And feel free to leave comments, including any suggestions on future guests. Thanks again for joining us. Until next time, stay safe, be happy, and spread good cheer wherever you go. For Leadership, I'm Roger Dean Duncan.